So I wanted to give you a glimpse of kind of where we're going with this. So we're going to eventually build out a rig for our character, do a walk cycle, all that good stuff. So this is sort of I'm trying to finish off the build of the character as I go along. So just kind of giving you a glimpse of where we're going. Let's go ahead and open up where we left off. So this is where we left off last time in respect to modeling. We have them in Engine now. And what I'd like to do is, in the previous image that I just brought up, he had his fingers articulated, but I keep talking about making a much simpler character. So I don't want to, what's it called? I want to kind of make it more of a mobile, low-res character. So like for your first character, you should always just kind of look at things like making an interesting silhouette, um, just finishing something. That's really your main goal for the first one. A lot of people are like, oh, I need to make it look as good as sort of a Mortal Kombat character, and that's really not the case at all. So I'm going to make the hands now, and I'm going to hit tab here. I'm going to go to edit mode on this jacket. I want to add two more cuts, one where the elbow goes, and so just going to place it somewhere in the middle. Then with that selected, that loop, I'm going to hit S, and then I'm just going to go with X, and I'm going to straighten that out just by moving that closer this way. And I want to move this in back because it's going to help with the rigging, and I'm going to hit S to scale that down. Just kind of positioning that in the middle. And his arms are not that long, so if we go to our front view, we can see here that it should only go out this far. So in the front view, I'm going to hit Shift and A, and I'm just going to make another cube, hit S to scale this down. Now, you might be wondering, like, well, how did it apply all of those things? Well, if you remember from a previous video, if you create a element inside of edit mode, it retains all of the modifiers from the previous one, right? And so with me, I'm going to be using the same subdivision modifier. I'm going to be using the same mirror modifier. I want to uncheck clipping though, because notice that when I did it last time, it was stretching inward, and I don't want that. So really all I'm going to do is just position the hand out here. This is going to be the palm. And then for the thumb and fingers, I'm just going to extrude out like a straight thing, like a mitten for this. And I want to extrude out a wrist. So this really is just going to be my wrist. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control R here. Let's go ahead and go on the edge. Hit Escape so it's centered there. And then this is going to, the hand is going to start coming out of here. So I'm going to, actually, let's go ahead and press L on this and just pull it back so that it lines up with the hand. Okay. Now, I'm going to hit S to scale all of this down. Now this back face here, let's hit L and move this out a little bit. Oops. And then I'm going to hit 3 to go to face mode. I'm going to select this back face here, and I'm going to hit X and delete the face there. And that's going to be the part that we're going to push inside there. So L, push that in a little bit, scale that down a little bit more. Now for this face, I'm going to bring this forward. This is going to serve as my palm. My thumb, I'm going to hit E and S and scale that in a bunch. And then press E and just bring this forward. And then hit E again. Sorry, click and then hit E again and then scale this down. So there is his thumb. And when we go to rig that, we can just throw an extra joint in there. So his hand is looking a little narrow there. So what I want to do is scale that out widthwise a little bit like that, and then just shift it over just a tad bit like that. Then push E, and then same thing, S, and then Y to make it narrow like that. And that's it. Now for the palm here, I'm going to hit E to extrude and then S and then scale that in a bunch and then just pull that up, and that's going to create, let's scale that in a lot more, just sort of like that divot in the palm. Let's go ahead and scale it in like this too. So just kind of like creates that fatty part of the palm and where the knuckles go down. Now you might be like, well, you know, don't we want more articulation? When we go to hit apply and all that stuff, you're going to see the edge loops coming through, right? So if I go into my subdivision stacker and I make it 2, you'll see now we have more cuts going all the way down, right? And if so, and we could always add edge loops later, but as I mentioned, it's really just a matter of like, you know, how detailed do we want it? And like I said in the previous example, I had all the fingers modeled out, but I think for this guy, you know, I don't want to go that overboard. All right, another thing I want to do is I want to add more. I want the wrist to be a little more narrow, so I'm going to hit L, pull this out a little bit more, and just select the loop back here. So I hit 2 to go to edge mode, and then Alt. Then I'm just going to scale that up a little bit more, and that's going to give me a nice curve going in this way. And I'm just going to push that back into his wrist. And let's go ahead and hit S to scale that down, like that. And this this curve here, I'm going to hit Alt to select it again. Sorry, let's go ahead and bring this back out a little bit. I want it to be actually be a lot. This wrist here, I want this to tweak a little bit more. So let's hit Alt. Maybe we'll hit Alt Z, and because it doesn't let me loop because it's so close to the other cut, and just select all those verts and hit S to scale that down, like that, and then S and Z and bring that in. Make this a bunch more narrow. I think that's okay. Otherwise, we can tweak forever. All right, let's go to Alt Z here. I'm gonna hit L to select all those faces and just push that into his wrist. And I also kind of like the idea of, let's select that jacket and bring that forward and scale that up a little bit more. Of the cuff of his jacket being a bit stiffer, right? So like if you remember, these are okay. Yeah, so that's the wrist. So if I hit Control and R out here, and I click that, it gives me a bit of a stiffer jacket, and I can hit S to scale that up. So I'm just kind of like making a nice curve, more of a nicer curve like that. Now, let's go ahead and I'm going to go to object mode here. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and finish off the suit jacket coat where it comes down the front. You know how it's kind of pulled out like this. The vest I'm going to do through texture. So what we can do is, let's go to edit mode here. I'm trying to think about doing this the easiest way possible. All right, let's try this. I'm going to go ahead and select just this face and hit E to extrude out forward. And then I'm going to go to 1, and I'm going to select these 2 verts. And let's go to merge vertices, and then at center, and let's do the same this way. What I'm doing is selecting these 2, and then I'm merging them in, and then back a little bit. And then what we get here is kind of like the front of a jacket sticking out like that. Now if we want to get that a little bit stiffer, I can hit Control R in here. Oh, you know, actually we needed to select the faces below that. So there's also this little bit of see this little face down here? I'm going to hit E and extrude that out. And actually, you know, I kind of like the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be that stiff. I guess we could just keep it as is. If you decide to merge these, what you'll get is a lot tighter cuff. So like for example, if I select these 2, shift right click, merge verts, and then if we do say at first, it'll bring it down. If we do at last, it'll bring it up. So if we do this again, and here's a trick that I like to do is, if I want to redo last action, see how I selected those? You could hit Shift R and it'll redo, and that gives us a stiffer thing. So it's up to you. I'm just going to leave that like that because, you know, that way I don't have to undo anything. So this gives us a little bit of control about, you know, where the front of our jacket is. We could also hit Control R in here and add a cut a little bit closer to the inside. And then if we pull that forward, you know, these verts, that'll also give us a little bit more on the inside. And if we pull it this way, you can see, you know, so that's another way of doing it. So there's like our jacket, right? We have our suit jacket done. So feel free to either add that loop or don't add that loop, that extra loop in there. I think I might do it in texture. If I grab this chunk, this shoulder mass, right, like all of these verts that make up the shoulder, I can shift those over. Another thing you can do, let's just say we want to make the lapel, right? So I'm going to hit L on the jacket itself, and then Control I, and then hide that. And let's go to object mode, and let's hit Control I on this and just hide everything but this jacket. So now, say I want to create I want to do the lapel, right? Remember we created the collar of his shirt from here. Well, what we could do is do the same thing where we just sort of select the elements across this jacket. I think for a low resolution mobile character, we'll just draw that stuff in, okay? I'm gonna hit Alt H on this, and then I'm gonna go to object mode, and then hit Alt H on that. I think this is it. I think we should move on to unwrapping, texturing, and then we can move on to rigging our character and then starting to set up animations. Now the last thing I'm going to do, let's save this, is let's hide these guys, our reference images. I'm going to select all of this and just move it back here again, and then do File and then Export FBX. And I'm going to navigate to that that GitHub folder. Let's see, Documents. Or actually, I think I had, here's my Professor X. So I made I added it to favorites. So let's go ahead and add this. And then what I'm going to do is pause it and open up. All right, so you can see here, now that we are in Unity, rather, it exported over pretty nicely. So what we're going to do probably in the next video is quickly unwrap the rest of this character, fit that all in there, and then just do a quick pass on texturing. But overall, our character looks pretty good in Engine. Before we decide to rig it, that's when we want to double check scale. But overall, I mean, I would usually just duplicate this model anyway, or just bring in a fresh copy of this guy. But here, let's play our game really quick. See how he looks. So if I click and move around, looks like we've got some Ghost Geo from Blender in there. But yeah, overall looks pretty good. I think when we go to script this, if I click on this book, for example, I'm going to have it where he like stops and then rotates and looks at it. But overall, he still moves in the direction that we want him to. Like if I click here, he still walks to that spot. And I guess we could just figure out what's going on, like what's up there. So these are what? Oh, some elements from his suit jacket, I guess. Oh, these might have been the buttons. So I'm just going to hit 3 and dissolve those for now. No. So I'll just... Oh, this is these, yeah. I guess these are buttons on his jacket. Anyway, alright, that's the end of this video.